The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 705. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a phenomenal lady on the show today. She is a women's life coach and also a wellness blogger, and I'm really excited to have her on and share her story with us today on self-confidence. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Joanne Encarnacion. Joanne, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to have this conversation. A little bit about me. I'm a women's life coach. What I do is I help women redefine their wellness of the mind, body, and soul through self-confidence, self-acceptance, and a whole lot of self-love. I'm also a wellness blogger, and so on my platform on Instagram at GoFitShow or on my blog, I write about my own pieces of self-discovery and lessons that I've learned as a woman in progress, and hopefully invite other people to open up that same conversation for themselves.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Joanne, what's your cultural background?
I'm Filipino.
Thanks for sharing that. And what'd be your favorite self-confidence quote?
My favorite self-confidence quote, I think, is one that I actually have for myself. It's my own little mantra, but it's "You are allowed to be messy and beautiful all at the same time."
Thanks for sharing that great quote and mantra. I mean, a lot of people think we have to be like this perfect person, not realizing like life can get messy and sometimes we can find beauty in that mess. So I really like that mantra that you mentioned. And in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
Wow. Okay. I think this definition for me has kind of evolved over time. I remember as a child growing up, you kind of look at somebody and you think confidence is all about like a look, right? Like this look of somebody who's like put together. And over time, I've discovered that confidence is really all about a feeling. And I think for me, the ultimate sense of self-confidence is being able to be fully acceptant in your truth, in whatever your entirety of your truth of your being is, from not only, the painful struggles of your past or those stories of the past that may have caused us so much trauma and turmoil trying to map out, refigure out that blueprint of life, but also just fully embracing all parts of who you are as a person, from, what you might look like, things that you like to eat, the way that you like to express yourself, your sexuality, even as a woman, your role in life as you define it. And so I think ultimately for me, self-confidence is all about a sense of self-acceptance in your own fullest self-expression.
Thanks for sharing that great definition. And Joanne, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
Oh my God. I think that's always been kind of a journey for me. And it started when I was a lot younger. It's interesting growing up as a first generation Filipino American. You get to kind of see the differences between culture and generation. And what I mean by that is I grew up with a lot of messaging from my mom or my mom's generation, her aunts, my aunts and uncles or whatnot, talking about my body image first off and foremost. You come into an Asian party or a family gathering and the first thing they say to you is oh, you're getting fat, or oh, you're getting skinny, or you're a little bit darker now, or you're getting so brown, or whatever. And there was always some form of criticism when it came to my body image, and it was never about hi, how are you? How's life been? And, I remember that just kind of rocking me to the core a little bit, because one, it was God, I'm so much more than what I look like, let's get beneath the layers and understand who I am as a person and get to know me for me, and don't just label me as what you see for face value. And so, I remember witnessing that, and also witnessing some of my generation and the other people within my community and friends and in high school or whatever, being very acceptant about these comments that were being made to them from their family members, unsolicited comments and unsolicited negative feedback, basically. And I remember thinking to myself, this is not okay. This is just not okay with me. And no, I'm not going to accept it for just that. That's just the way my family is. And I remember speaking up about it and standing even firmly in my truth of just I'm an emotional being and I deserve every single right for my emotions to be heard. And it was definitely an uphill like battle and climb in terms of that, in terms of just like kind of like overcoming that self-confidence. And as I became an adult, there's definitely a lot more steps along the journey, from becoming a mom and having to go through another change of your body image and having to kind of grapple with society and cultural standards and beauty norms and all those things. And I was the one out of my sister and my mom who had stretch marks and loose skin after I had my babies, and they didn't have that. And I remember feeling like almost like this like lack of self-worth based on just that comparison of like what we looked like. And that was hard for me. And I just remember always having to like basically warrior up and like armor up and like fight for myself because nobody was fighting for me. And I think in that journey of understanding that like I have to fight for what I believe in, my truth of who I am as a person, that is kind of what my like fight for like self-confidence was, because it was always like an uphill climb for me. And so I think like in terms of what life was like. So that was just kind of a back like story of just kind of like I guess the foundation of my climb, or the foundation of my journey of self-confidence. I remember feeling as an adult woman after having children, being married and having an incredible job at a startup company, feeling at my lowest actually as a woman, because I lost that self-confidence that I had, that fire that I had growing up as a child, due to basically trying to follow all the shoulds of what I should be like as a woman, how I should be like as a wife, what I should be like as a mother, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just was so exhausted having to live up to everyone's standards. And that was kind of my life before discovery of self-confidence. It was exhausting, like it was exhausting having to live up to everyone's standards, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, especially as Asian women, right? We've been told all our lives to look a certain way, sit a certain way, eat a certain way, live a certain way. And if we go outside that line, it's considered not ladylike, right? Not realizing like we're here for a reason. We're here to live our own lives and do things that we want to do versus, being expected to do things for others, right? Not that like doing things for others is a bad thing, but if you're doing it, in a forced way and you're not happy and you're sacrificing yourself just to please others, and yeah, that's where you have to look down and realize, what am I doing with my life? Is this what I want to do? I know I'm unhappy and this is not for me. And what was that point in your life when you realize, you can do and be more and be that person today? What was that aha moment?
My aha moment was when my daughter and I were in her bedroom getting ready, just like, a Sunday afternoon with your family. And her and I were side by side, and she looked at me and she's like, "Mom, you're so beautiful." And I turned to her and said, "No, I'm not. I'm ugly and fat." In the same way that most women shame themselves in the dressing rooms with their girlfriends when they're trying on clothes, like it just was like, it just came out. Like it wasn't like to shut her down or anything. It just came out like blindly out of my mouth, right? Like I just wasn't thinking about it. It just came out. And the look on her face is one that I will never forget, because it was as if I ripped apart the truth that she knew that her mom was the most beautiful and strong woman that she knows in her lifetime. And she walked out of the room, and I remember thinking to myself, holy shit, like I don't like who I am as a person, as a woman. I don't like who I've been becoming. And it was mostly because leading up to that moment, I was also experiencing about a good 18 months of depression and anxiety from being overworked, living that startup life, and really just kind of, again, like I mentioned earlier, trying to live up to everyone's expectation. I was exhausted from it, and it like took away so much from my health, and just taking care of myself, like as a human being, like, just eating well and exercising and moving and whatnot, and keeping my stress levels down. And, part of it, and what you mentioned earlier about just like the cultural messaging as Asian women, like we were also taught that if you took care of yourself, it was selfish, right? And the notion of eating well for myself and exercising or taking the time to do these things for myself was a selfish thing. And so I never did that when my kids were younger, because I never knew I had the ability to. I thought I was told it was like selfish. And so that was a turning point, because for me, it was like, how am I going to teach my daughters, and how am I going to empower them as beautiful, strong women if I am not if I do not believe in myself as being a beautiful and strong woman? And that was kind of like the turning point of like, you know what, I better get my shit together. Not for me, but for them also.
Thanks for sharing that great story. And yeah, it's crazy what the things we say to ourselves, right? And I know sometimes that can stem from childhood and our upbringing, especially as Asian women, when you move to another country, we don't look like everybody else. So that really doesn't help either, right? We want to aspire to be someone else, another culture, not realizing like we are more than enough, to go out there and be who we are today and, live that our authentic selves. And, I'm glad you were able to realize like, you are beautiful, self-care is necessary and it's not selfish, right? And we all need it. We all need it, whether it's just taking 5 minutes to yourself or getting yourself a manicure or, taking yourself out to a restaurant. Like self-care is important in our lives or else we'll go insane and not in a good way.
Exactly. I mean, I always like tell this, right? Like, in order to have the most flourishing relationships in our life, we have to have the most flourishing relationship with ourselves. And if we don't have that, then we are not able to be able to give back to the other people or our communities or our work or our creativity, like whatever. We're unable to give back if we're not having the best relationship with the one person that's the most important relationship to have, which is yourself.
Totally agree. And, because of these realizations, what's your life been like now?
Oh my God, my life has been so full. It's been so full. It's been really amazing. I think, one of the things that I have realized about my life these days is how much more in peace I can be when it comes to either conflict or when it comes to problems or when it comes to just believing that things will work out. I think one of the things that was always hard growing up in an Asian or Filipino household is like Asian cultures have always been, and not just Asian cultures, like immigrant cultures in general, have grown up with a scarcity mindset. And you kind of, sometimes with a scarcity mindset, you just kind of think like life isn't going to be abundant. It always has to be stressful. It always has to be this and that. And don't get me wrong, my life is still pretty stressful as a solo business owner and an entrepreneur. It gets kind of crazy and hectic at times. But there's also this sense like abundance and you know what, life is hard, but it's also so amazing too. And that's the messaging that like I never grew up with. And I really wish my mom had instilled in me, like my mom was definitely the kind of woman who was like, life is stressful, Anak, like it's going to be hard. And I'm like, yeah, it can be hard, but we can also have fun with it. Like it doesn't have to be as stressful as you put it to be. It doesn't have to be as crazy and as hard. And so, life now, I think I still also face things that I'm scared of. I still find myself in moments of fear, especially when it's something new. But what I've realized also within myself is the self-confidence kicks in and it's this like, you know what, like I deserve to have this opportunity. I deserve to be in this scary moment. I deserve to have this opportunity of growth and change because that was designed for me. And I think I get to just look at life in a lot more of an abundant way, but also in a much more graceful and loving way as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Joanne, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey to self-confidence. What'd be that one tip you'd give to her?
I think the one biggest tip that I would give to a woman who is on her journey for self-confidence, on the road to self-confidence, is give yourself a lot of grace. This journey of self-confidence isn't linear. There isn't A to B destination. Sometimes your destination will have multiple road bumps along the way where you might doubt yourself and know that in the moments of self-confidence, the doubt is there to teach you, to kind of like gut check you with your own confidence. And it's there to like allow you to see that there's a growth opportunity there. So give yourself a lot of grace. The road is bumpy, but just like my mantra, it's also very beautiful and it can be messy at the same time.
Thanks for sharing that great tip. And, if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yeah, I am all things social at GoFitJo. That's GoFitJo. And you can find me on my blog at www.gofitjo.com. And you can also find me on a really fun project that I've got with my partner, John. And it's just an Instagram account where we rant about love, relationships, and all the messy conversations people don't want to have about love, relationships, and sex at Hella Married on Instagram. So that's at Hella Married.
Thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Joanne, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Joanne's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I really just want to thank Joanne today for taking the time to share her story and tips with us on self-confidence. So thank you so much, Joanne.
You're so very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. It was really great having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Want to learn how you can use podcasting to market your business? Download your free report by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.